what we're doing, because I don't know what you can see and what you can't see. So new share, I guess we're, sorry, I'm just taking a half a second to answer a Zoom group chat that came up. Okay, so I'm going to stop the share for just a second and choose share it again and see if we could figure out where we're at. All right, so I'm going to be showing you SPSS. This is a program that almost everybody should have access to it. You can download a student version and you should be able to work at home if you wanted to, or not. You could just work here on these machines. So I'm sharing my screen now. You should see SPSS. And you should see, when you launch SPSS, you should see something along the lines of this. It'll be, you know, similar, like you have to open, it'll give you this choice of opening a window right away. And that is, okay. All right, we're gonna hold on for just a second here because I have a two-screen monitor, so I'm trying to figure out what actually you guys can see, which of the screens I'm sharing with you. So just sit tight for half a second. We're trying to figure out which screen it is that all of you can see. All right. So we're gonna try sharing the screen again, but this way we're gonna go over here and try that. All right, so when you are dealing with, when you're in SPSS, when you launch it for the first time, you're gonna get something that looks similar to this. It'll be a spreadsheet, okay? And when you wanna load your SPSS, I'm assuming that you're gonna have your SPSS data already downloaded, which I definitely recommend you do. So you can pull it off of the D2L website, and I'll show you something to go through if you can't get it off of there. We'll have to go through some other way to kind of download a smaller data set, because I think the size can sometimes be a problem for D2L. So you're going to download it, and once you get to SPS, once you want to load it, you're going to double click on it, and it will, SPSS will launch, and it will ask you what you want to open, okay? And it'll give you a little window, and it'll say, and usually it'll try to open the thing that you opened most recently. So for us, we are going to open a data file. And here's a good place to talk about the various file formats that you can work with in SPSS. There's three main types. There's a syntax file, there's a data file, and there's an output file, all right? The data file is the data file. It's the thing that you're going to download from D2L. You're going to download it and kind of have it on, hopefully, I think it's best to have it on USB drive because it is kind of big, but also it allows you to move from machine to machine. The syntax file is basically a cookbook for what you're going to be actually doing, okay? And the thing is I'm going to tell you how to do this, and I'm going to show you how to do it, and you're going to have to turn in a syntax file, but you're not actually probably going to appreciate how great a syntax file is until you've been doing a bunch of work on SPSS. Because the easiest way to do this project is to use the drop-down menu, where you go up here and you say you're going to analyze, and you tell SPSS which data you want to use, and you do this and this and this. And it's easy and it's intuitive. It's like almost any other thing that you would ever use. You know, it's very similar to how you might work in a Word file where you open up a tab off of that menu and you tell Word to italicize something, or you tell it to make it bold. Well, SPSS is very similar in that you can use a drop-down menu and tell it step by step what you want to do, okay? But the problem with that is, while it's easy and intuitive to understand, every single time you want to recreate your analysis or redo anything to your data, you have to go through those steps. And if you don't go through those steps in the exact right way every single time, you could end up with things that are different from one session to the next. So I'm going to show you guys how to use a syntax file. It's essentially a cookbook. You're going to open it. You're going to follow the steps every single time that you want to work with some aspect of your project. And ideally, you know, and the best part about this is you save it, okay? And so you could come into an SPSS session and, you know, spend, you know, 4 hours writing code, you know, setting up your analysis the way that you wanted, okay? You can save it, all right? Don't save all your data set, save the syntax file. And then when you come back to SPSS the next day, you can open that syntax file, highlight it, and run it. And you pick up essentially where you left off. Okay, so it's a beautiful thing, and I am going to encourage you all as best as I can to use it. Okay, and then the other file, the other file format that we're going to deal with a lot is the output file. And essentially all that is it's a recording of all of the things that you've done during a session. And so you might use it to kind of refer back to some of the things that you've been working on or whatever. It's nice to have, but it's not in any case some type of like final product. I mean, we use the syntax or the output file just to kind of have as a record of what you did in a session. So I'm actually I'm relaunching SPSS because it's not showing me what I want at this point. And hold on just a second, don't anybody panic, it's still there. I just got to bring it over. All right, so this is what usually happens is you get this little, this dialog box asking, you know, what is the thing that you want to open? For me, I'm sorry, I have, like I said before, I have the data saved on my F drive in a folder there. I recommend all of you do the same. You highlight it and then click OK. And then you don't panic because it does take SPSS usually a while to load if you haven't worked with it in a while. All right, so the first, let me show you the output file. The output file looks like this. It's basically just, it has like the list of commands on the left-hand side, and then, you know, basically what you make SPSS do. So if you run a descriptive or some type of frequency, that'll pop up here in this viewer window or the output window. Right now, we're going to just minimize that. So in SPSS, when you launch a data set for the first time, you're going to have it'll open like so, and the very first thing you're going to see is a variable view. This is essentially all the variables that are in your data set, and it has a set. It's kind of funny because it's like, I think of it as the variable view because it shows all of the information that is collected on each of these items, because it's not just the value, it's also like, so here we have a variable name, okay, and these are all going to be, you know, ranging from, for case ID, it'll probably be something like 0 to, you know, 5,000 or whatever. And then it'll tell you what is the type of that variable, because we have string variables, we have numeric variables, we have categorical variables. There's all kinds of types that you can have, all right? And then I'll tell you the width and whether or not there are decimals and what the decimal places are carried out to. And then there's some other things here. And most important here for you guys is understanding what the label is, okay? This is what comes up whenever you do something with a variable name. So for example, if I were going to say, do a descriptive on gun_import, then this label is going to be generated and it'll let me know what is going on with this variable. So, because gun_import isn't necessarily intuitive. I that's something I don't want to keep that information in my head, like always having to remember, you know, what is gun underscore import. I don't need to remember it because this label is going to be generated whenever I work with gun underscore import. And then the other additional thing that you're going to be interested in is the values column. Maybe not so much now, but once you start doing analysis, you're going to want to know, how are the missing data coded? Because you don't typically have values for every single aspect of your variable. I mean, you might have people who refuse to answer a question because they thought it was too personal, or people who didn't understand the question, so they didn't answer it, whatever. However your variables are coded, the values question will tell you, the values column will tell you what the info is, okay? So, and then this is the variable view, and then if you click to the data view, this is actually your data. And so all the things that are in the variable view that are running as rows here in this first column, they are now going to be in the top of the data view. So here you go, case ID, and then up here, case ID. And then over here, weight underscore FTF, weight underscore FTF, okay? So when you do analysis, you're actually doing the analysis on this spreadsheet right here on the data view, but this variable view option is simply just what you would work with in terms of, I'm sorry, this is the variable view. This gives you just a snapshot of all of your variables, okay? This data view is the actual data, all right? So for us, what we, this is basically how we're gonna start working with the ANES. Now, let me introduce you to our friend, the syntax file, all right? We're gonna go to File and Open. And again, we get the choice between data, syntax, output, and script. We're gonna go with syntax right now. And I'm actually I'm opening something that I was working on earlier today, but when you open it, actually let me see if I can open a new one. All right, so your syntax file is like this. It's the IBM SPSS syntax editor, all right? And here is where you would type anything that you wanted SPSS to do, okay? So you could type in, you know, whatever. It's just basically a text editor, okay? But you don't know how to type anything in yet because, like most languages, there's a structure to the commands that you ask for in SPSS. So for us, let me show you a little bit of what we're looking at here, okay? So this is going to be, this is just for today's session. The structure and the format will be very similar going forward. With a syntax file, you can include comments to yourself and also to me because I'm going to be reading these. And the only thing that you do is you just put a star at the beginning of the line, okay? When you put a star at the beginning of the line, SPSS disregards everything that comes after it on that line. So you can make comments to yourself like, okay, this here's a set of instructions, open ANES data set, paste this, da, 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 da. These are all instructions and notes to myself and to you guys. If you put, and so that's nice to have. It helps us organize our file nicely. When you run commands, or when you start coding or writing syntax, it follows a very kind of regimented structure. First, you have this sort of pretty much what the command is, what you're going to be doing, and then you have specifics after that, and it usually includes your variable down there, and then you have a period, okay? So that is pretty much the structure of all SPSS syntax. You have the function or the thing that you're going to be doing, you have the specifics on, you know, what it is that you're doing, and then you're also including the variable and then a period, okay? Now, if your command is in blue, if it's shown up as blue and basically navy blue to start, it's good to go, it's good to run, okay? But look what happens when we delete the period off of the end of that sentence, okay? Now as it's all lit up, or now that it's red instead of navy blue, this is SPSS's way of telling me, listen, there's something wrong with this command. In fact, when I roll over it, there's a little file or a little message that comes up that says syntax block is missing a closing period. Okay, that's telling me, hey, you need to put a period on that. Okay, so we have our commands, all right, and don't trouble yourself too much about the actual structure here, because as you get better and better with statistics and variables and data analysis and all that, this will become more and more intuitive, all right? And I'm going to show you a hack too on how to get around that. So, yeah, that's pretty much the structure of a SPSS syntax file. Now, let's say I'd been working on this for hours and hours and hours, and I had, instead of having, 46 lines of text here, maybe I had 500 lines of text, okay? When I save this, I can save it and basically keep a record of all the things I tell SPSS to do. And then when I come back tomorrow, I can open up that file, highlight the whole thing, and run it, okay? It's a pretty nice feature that saves you a lot of time if you're willing to use it. Now, many of you are not going to use it. Many of you are going to think that you just don't have time for the syntax file, which is unfortunate because you're going to spend a lot of time recreating your work. But don't tell me I didn't tell you so, okay? So in the syntax file, you have all of your commands, like so. And whenever you want to run something, you highlight it, okay? And then you click the green play button. This is your execute button or your run selection button. And when you do that, SPSS will do the thing that's highlighted. The lovely, like I said, the lovely thing is that you can go Control A and highlight everything and then run it, which is a nice option, okay? And because we have all of these things that are commented out here, SPSS won't run these. It'll ignore them, okay? And the reason why that's important is, see what happens when I take this sentence or that period away, okay? So here's something that's just some gobbledygook text to me. It's a note to me, okay? I removed the star there, which means that I'm telling SPSS, listen, whatever's here, I want you to run it, okay? So let's highlight all of this and run it, okay? So we'll get into, you'll get a chance to look at this in a little bit more depth later. But look what happened in this last line, okay? It says, an unrecognized subcommand was found. The recognized subcommands in the means procedure are tables, missing cells, and statistics. Execution of this command stops. What SPSS is telling us here is that I wrote a command that SPSS does not recognize, and it's shut down. It stopped doing whatever it is I asked it to do, okay? That is nice. It's a nice error message, but unless you are paying attention to this video and hearing me talk to you about it, you probably aren't going to understand what that means when you get it in the run of your project work. So, all right, so we're going to add that. We added that star back to that command so that I'm not going to be messed up by that again in the future. Now, like I've asked for you to do, as you can see here, what I want for today's assignment is I want you to create 2 figures, a bar graph, a histogram, a pie chart, a line graph, whatever, using SPSS and basically one variable in the data set. And then for the second part of this, I want us to find the mode, median, or mean for 3 variables. And then I've got the commands on how to do that, here, here, and here, okay? Under each of these commands is the actual answer that I've commented out, okay? So what we want to do is we're going to step through the actual analysis that you do this with. Step through the process, and then you'll see how you can generate that actual command and then just copy and paste it. All right, so starting with graphs, and actually we're going to minimize the syntax file. So we're going to go up to graphs, and you can get like literally there are books written on the chart builder and all the different fancy things you can do with charts. It's a lot of work and it's a lot of frustration. You need to be kind of a ninja level user to get anything out of that. So rather than going the fancy way, we're going to go the plain, simple way, and we're going to go to legacy dialogues, okay? This will bring up a folder, or I'm sorry, a dialog box that's going to give you some options for figures and graphs that you can create. You can see bar graph, line graph, pie chart, histogram. Those are the main probably 4 that we would use in the regular run of play. So starting with a bar graph, okay, we can choose to go simple, clustered, or stacked. Since we're only using one variable, I think it's probably just better to go simple, but you could, if you wanted to do 2 variables by each other, you could go clustered or even stacked. So, all right, so we've clicked on this and then we're gonna say define. And what we're doing when we do define is we're defining the things that we want to have in this figure. So for us, we're choosing, let's see, I can't remember what exactly it was that we went with the first time. It was, hold on, I want to keep this like the same as it was. All right, bar graph of PID underscore X, gender respondent, and dem. All right, good. So I'm going to bring this over. So for the, when we launch this window, we see all of the variables over here on the left, okay? These are the variable labels, okay? And at some point, this is going to be useful for you. You're going to love it. It's going to be great. But in another way, it's also going to be kind of a pain because many of you are going to start thinking in terms of your actual variable name. So in that case, all you do is right-click and show display variable names. That's the actual name of the variable. Okay, so like who voted 2008. Or you can show display variable labels, which is a little bit more information. Okay, so for us, we're going to work with the PID underscore X item. After I go to variable names, I can also choose to sort alphabetically. Again, just going right click. Okay, so right click and then scroll down. I'm looking for PID underscore X. This is the item that is political party identification. So this is going to let me know, political party identification. So Republican, Democrat, Independent, etc. So I'm going to highlight it, and then I'm going to click on category axis, and then I can also there are some other things that you could do. You can go into the options and change stuff around. You can go into titles and put titles in. You know, those are just things that you probably want to play with when you have time. But for us, we just want to get a bar graph of these items. Okay. So what we have here, it popped up in the output viewer. Okay. So this is, we executed that command using the drop-down menu. We did it going graphs, legacy, bar. But then when it did that, it produced the graph in our viewer, okay? The lovely thing about this is that you can copy and paste this into some type of Word file if you wanted it. If like you're working on your project and that's what you need to have in your life, then that's what you need to have. So that's nice. The other part of this is it's pretty much exactly what you'd expect to see in a bar graph of this variable. So this variable, which is PID underscore X, is a question about how respondents identified in a political party standpoint. So were you strong Democrat, not strong Democrat, independent, or an independent leaning Democrat? Were you independent Republican, not very strong Republican, or strong Republican? So in the data set, each of those is coded, every person's response, instead of it being in the data set as strong Democrat, 2, not very strong Democrat, 3, independent Democrat, it's actually in there as numbers, okay? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or 7, all right? The ANES has simply done a little SPSS work for us so that these labels show up anytime we do anything with PID underscore X. So when you did this with the drop-down menu, it created a syntax file for us, or a bit of syntax right here. Now, it also, I needed to hit return a little bit so that it wouldn't grab this first line that's there. But this graph underscore bar, open paren simple, close paren equals count by PID X, that is a syntax that you need to recreate this. So you can right click on that box and say copy, and then go over to your syntax file and put it in nice and lovely like, okay? I'm gonna put it down below the example I already have. And I'm gonna delete this commented out section because we don't really need it. So now I've copied and pasted, I generated, using the drop-down menu, a syntax, a line of syntax on creating this bar graph for PID underscore X. And now I'm simply just gonna copy that and paste it into our syntax file. And now it lives here. Now, anytime I want to make a graph of PID underscore X, I can just come in here, copy this, and, or I'm sorry, highlight it and run it. Again, when you run that selection with the green triangle, it does the thing that you just asked it to do, which is pretty fantastic, I think. Okay, so once you get that part of it, if you wanted to add some other items, some other variables, say you wanted to get a bar graph for something else, like maybe gender of the respondent. Now, I already have this item down here, but you could very easily just go like this. I had already generated this command, so I know that this is a variable right here, gender underscore respondent. So I can just copy and paste this original syntax that I opened and worked with, add in the new variable, and now I can get a bar graph of the new variable. Look at that. Is that not amazing, honestly? Okay, so this is the same exact syntax that would have been generated if I had gone up here to graphs, legacy dialogues, bar graph, and then put the variables in, which is pretty awesome. Okay, so I've asked for 2 figures. I am showing you, here's an example on how to use the pie chart. Okay, so I happen to have the command written graph slash pie, but I could have gone, if I didn't know that information, I could have gone to legacy dialogues, dragged over to pie, and then I usually just kind of let it go with the, because it's a summary measure or summary visualization. So I'll just kind of let it go this way. And then I come in here and look for my variable. I know it's gender respondent. Okay, put that in there and then hit OK. And it reproduces. So there's 2 different ways to get these figures. Okay. Great. So that is how you do those. Here's another example on histogram. Okay, so this is how many hours a person works. As you can see, like this item right here is probably 40 hours a week because that's like what most people work. And then when you do it, when you do this, each of these gives you like a little key with a little bit more information about what's going on. So that's a nice way to go about it. You can create all the analysis that you're going to need for your mini projects and for pretty much anything in this class. You can go through the drop-down menu for your first go, but then go through it and copy and paste each of your commands and stick them in your syntax file, and you'll have a running history of everything that you've done. Okay. The last thing we're going to talk about is what you need to do for chapter 3. There's a command in syntax or in SPSS that is frequencies. And again, let's kind of break down what this format looks like. We have the function that we want, or the thing that we're going to ask SPSS for. Then you have the variable, okay? And then you have more specifics about what you're asking about. So in this case, we want statistics on this frequency, and I'm asking for mean, median, and mode. And then we've got it order now. This is just something that kind of gets generated whenever we do this. How we would do this in real life is we would go analyze, descriptives, frequencies, okay? Display variable names. What was this item? This is DEM, number of children. Remember, you can just right click on that box to get a little bit more useful way to display that. DEM children, DEM num children. There we go. And then you go statistics, you click on that little box there, and then you can click mean, median, and mode. All right, you're telling SPSS, give us the frequency, but also while you're at it, give us the frequency, give us the mean, median, and the mode, okay? Then you hit okay, back out of that and hit okay. All right, and what this does is it reports some summary statistics of what you just asked for, including your mean, median, and mode. Done. Okay, it also gives you a frequency distribution. So for us, we want to head back to the syntax window, and I ask for, since my question was find the mode, median, and mean for 3 variables, you're going to want to perform this frequencies bit on 3 different variables, okay? And then you'll also want to include the scores for each. 50, so in the first time we did this analysis, the mean was 0.59 children. So if you look here, mean 0.59, all right? The mode is 0 children. I guess I can make this a little smaller with this, okay? Mode, 0 children. Now, if you look at the frequency distribution down below, the number of children with the greatest frequency was 0, no children in the house. So we know that this checks out. And then looking for the median, 0.0 children. As you can see, this is about 1,300 and then another 400. That's 1,700 to 1,800 altogether. If you listed all of these out so that each line, you listed out 5,916 lines of data, the first 4,000 are going to be 0 for 0 children. Well, if you're looking for the median, you're looking for something that's about 3,000 observations in, which would be still 0 children because there's 4,000 observations in the data set with no children. So that was pretty easy, okay? I also did the scores on FT_T. This is feelings towards a tea party. When we do this analysis, this is what the frequency distribution looks like. So in this data set, there were 930 people that felt 0, that scored a 0 on the FT party item. This is that they felt incredibly negatively or very coldly or essentially just disliked the tea party. And then there were 144 people who felt extremely warmly, extremely great, extremely wonderfully about the tea party. And so that's a distribution that was generated. If we go to the syntax file, not that one. If we go to the other one, we can see that the mean is, if we scroll up this little box right here that we generated with our statistics option, we have a mean score on the FT_T item is 41.64. The median was 50 and the mode was 50. So this essentially split. The mode indicates that there were 1,568 people that scored the tea party as a 50, and that was more than any other in this variable. And then the median is obviously just splitting that distribution in half. finally, the last item is this discrimination score blacks item. This is about the level of discrimination, how much discrimination is there in the US towards blacks. It's scored as 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5, but it's an ordinal measure, meaning that 1 stands for a great deal, 2 stands for a lot, 3 stands for a moderate amount, 4 a little, 5 none at all. And so SPSS generates the items that we need there. So the mean score here, because this ranges from 1 to 5, it's going to be, some type of value between 1 and 5. And we get 2.82, which is between a lot and a moderate amount. The modal the modal answer for this item was 3, which is a moderate amount. If you look at the numbers here, you see that 2,082, that's the number of people that answered 3 on this item. That's more than any other. And then it also makes up the median. The one way to think also about the median is if you look at the cumulative percent, you're looking for where the 50% item is, where 50% would be on this cumulative percent column. So cumulative percent is going to be somewhere between 2 and 3 because 35% is here and 73.9% is there. And if you remember, the median is the 50th percentile, so it's going to fit right in somewhere there. And that is, that's how you would kind of ballpark it if you didn't have the ability to get into a whole lot of detail on SPSS. So that is it. I'm asking that everybody upload their syntax file from today's session to the week 1 module. I'm asking you to save it with your last name, first name, and then week 1. So for me, it would be, if I was going to save this, I'd save it as Bishop-Royse, Jessica _ week 1. Okay, so you save that bad boy, and you say, and you, so I would go here, Bishop-Royse, Jessica _ week 1. Save. Okay. The syntax file is the most important part. Okay. Once I've saved it, I want to close out of it. Everything else does not need to be saved because if you've run your syntax file and updated it with all the commands that you did, you don't have to worry about losing any data or losing any of the analysis that you've done. The first time you X out, it's asking, do I want to save the contents to the output viewer? I don't want to. But if I were going to take this and go home and work on it, I might say yes and then open it and print it so that I would have it to work on. But not everybody chooses to do that. So I'm going to say no for right now. And it is, and the last thing I need to do here is exit. And it's going to ask, do I want to save the changes to the following data set? No, I never want to do that. Do not save changes to your data set. If you do that, you're going to you run the risk of messing up your data set. And worse, your data set and your SPSS file are not going to work together well. So never save over your data sets. And that is that. We are not saving the changes, and we're done. So that's all. I'm going to post this as a recording later back to D2L, and I am looking forward to seeing everybody in class. I will see you there in about 20 minutes. Okay.